All right, guys, welcome in here. It is can't believe it, it's Tuesday, February the 4th here. We are just about 40 days away from the madness known as March Madness tournament time here. Plenty can happen between now and then. Ralph Michaels joining me, WagerTalk.com here for another edition of the Happy Hour Tip-Off Show. It's all about college hoops for us here, guys. And, we got a interesting card tonight, 22 games. Light card last night. We'll review those games, Ralph, but it's kind of hard to believe. We're 40 days away from tournament time. It's where's the time gone, man?
Yeah, well, again, our apologies yesterday. We had some technical difficulties, and those guys that reached out on Twitter, thanks for following, and glad that you missed the show. It's nice to hear. And, Drew will be with us most of the times. He had a scheduling conflict today, but looking forward, it's, we're into the season, Joe. Teams are playing. They're in that 20-game range.
Yep.
We're starting to see the revenge situations, those same season revenge situations. There's a lot of value with that. Later on, after we get through our angles and our market and look at a situation, I have an angle with revenge talking about a ACC game later today. So I'll be sharing that with you in a few minutes.
All right, so let's go through the customary upsets last night. Again, not a big card, Ralph. But what stuck out to you, if anything? I know Idaho, Sacramento State. That was a bit of a head scratcher for some people there as they took care of business on the road, expecting a little more from Sacramento State. But Idaho gets the job done there by 11 last night.
I mean, this Idaho team was 5-15 going in, so that clearly was a shock for me. Yep. Not only just winning the game, but winning by 14. And why did they do that? Well, you went on the road, and from two-point land, you shot 50%, and from three-point land, you shot 67%. So, and you made 15 free throws. Well, guess what? You're going to win a lot of games on the road when you shoot those kind of percentages. So it just goes to show you, that's part of college basketball. These kids are playing. They're playing hard. You think that a team like Idaho, oh, man, you're playing your second road game in 2 days. You played Saturday at Northern Arizona. Then you have to go play Sacramento State. But that's why it's called gambling.
Yep.
Anyone could have a breakout night, and any team can be cold on any given night. So you saw they were an 11-point dog, and they ended up winning by 14. So guess what? I think they're going to be near the top of the largest covers from yesterday as well, Joe.
Yeah, you're damn straight. As in fact, Ralph, let's take a look here at some of these numbers from yesterday. Yep, there they are, 25 points. It's kind of crazy, Ralph, when you look at this, too. Baylor, Kansas State made that as that hit the over at by going over 16 points there. Baylor and Kansas State giving Baylor really, even at the end, kind of a tough loss. They missed a couple of free throws there that would have put the cover on for those that were backing Baylor, but it wasn't to be. Kansas State does lose, but gets the cover. But that went flying over, Ralph, by 16 points.
Yeah, well, look at the overs, Joe. I only found 3 overs yesterday, so look at those margins, 4 and 3 points. So obviously it was an under day across the country.
Yep.
Again, I don't think all year, even when we had like 6 or 7 games on some of those days, I don't think a 3 or a 4 point over cover made the sheet. But obviously a lot of unders last night. You look at those under margins. Coppin State and Howard 35 points under the total, and Jackson State 30 points, and Florida State. You're looking at a North Carolina team. We talked about North Carolina getting better. Cole Anthony came back. The first game, what happens? They lose to Boston College, and that's no surprise. Guys, when a superstar comes back, be it in the NBA, be it in college basketball, it is usually a negative the first game because these kids all had their rotations. They all knew who they were playing with. You all know where you were on the court. And then you bring in the number one player, and all those rotations and all those the time you play and who you're playing with changes. So you often see that the first game when the team's best player comes back from an injury.
Yeah, no, exactly correct. And Leonard Hamilton and the boys there in Tallahassee certainly they got it rolling, Ralph. And last night, what a shock! I had read somewhere that they don't get a lot of love, but Gerald Andrus of Prairie View quietly, Ralph, I do believe is the most profitable ATS team in the country. in hoops. This team does pretty well here, Ralph, apparently. Nobody talks about them. We've talked about them a couple of times here. Wouldn't you know it? They got another win again last night against Alabama A&M.
And again, we know that not often. Sometimes you just aren't playing these teams,
right.
And we understand that because they're not lined for everywhere, and it's not always the case. But you look at the two guys from Grambling. Mississippi Valley State's a bad team, but
awful.
You normally don't see two players with us, Irv Smith Jr. and Trayvon Bunch, where they combined for 42 points and 21 rebounds.
Yeah, you got and again, Northern Arizona, Eastern Washington was a good game last night too as well. Northern Arizona didn't get the job done. It was a close game. Eastern Washington wins, but great effort by DeBishop there for Brooks DeBishop of Northern Arizona. That was touch and go the entire game. A lot of people were favoring Eastern Washington, but they were the road team. So Northern Arizona, unfortunately, couldn't get it done, but great individual performance there. And you got, Ralph, 22 games on card tonight here. That a lot of Big Ten matchups. So I know people are going to be interested in seeing all the big guns here tonight. Will be added some ACC matchups as well. So before we take a look at the market, why don't we take a look at some of these trends and angles that you pulled up for us here today?
Well, since you brought that up, Joe, I'm just going to go through the top 5 guys as far as ATS percentages are. Yale right now this season comes in number 1, 14-4 against the spread. Winthrop number 2 at 16-5 ATS. Lafayette 15-5-1. Austin Peay 15-5-1. And South Dakota State 17-6 against the spread. Teams on the bottom: Iona 3-13-1. Samford 5-15-1. North Dakota 5-15. Wagner 5-14. And Kennesaw State 6-16. The other thing I want to share is every Monday, I'll start doing it the rest of the way out now. But on Mondays, Joe, I do a conference versus conference chart. And I post it on my Twitter at Cal Sports LV. WagerTalk. A couple of the interesting things, it breaks down home favorites and home dogs against the spread straight up and over under.
Okay.
Well, Big South home favorites this year, 11-21 against the spread, 34.4%. Missouri Valley home favorites, 14-12 against the spread. How about this? Summit, the Summits are the Dakota teams. When a Summit team is a home favorite, they are now 21-4-1 over under on the year.
Wow. Damn. Really?
21-4, 84% to the under, as long as you have a home favorite. When there's a home dog in the Summit, the over-under is 6-8, so it's actually an under lean.
Right.
But, a couple more. Mountain West, when there's a home favorite, they're 25-12, and when they're a home dog, they're 13-7. So Mountain West teams this year, 38-19. Over. So it's a great chart to look at what conferences have good home favorites, what conferences are overs, what conferences are unders. I'll update it every Monday the rest of the year.
Yep.
You can go to my Twitter page and look back at yesterday's posts, or go to my homepage at WagerTalk, and you're going to be able to download that chart for free. Just another tool. Just looking at one or two angles from tonight. Ball State now 1-12 over on the road. Tennessee's been an over team on the road, going 14-2. Toledo is 2-12 ATS, but I can tell you what, I played against them once, and they beat Akron outright as a dog. So they were 1-12, unless I gave them out. Then they were 2-12. And Wyoming clearly the bottom in the Mountain West, and they are 0-7-1 ATS at home their last 8 games.
Interesting, very interesting stuff there, Ralph. And again, it also goes to show you too. Those charts will help you understand where some of the, the undervalued leagues, because unless it's a primetime market, Ralph, or a primetime game, there are some of those like the Summit and others. They just don't get the same kind of attention that the ACC does or the SEC. So oftentimes you can find a lot of value, especially in the totals.
Again, I learned from this chart so much, Joe. Yep. I did email to you, so make sure you look at it. Yep. I've been on St. Peter's a few times, and the MAAC's been very good to me. The MAAC. Home dogs this year in the MAAC, 12-1, 92%. Well, guess what? I had St. Peter's a few times. Well, now it makes sense. So just looking at which conferences are live home dogs, which ones have been dominated by home favorites, and the over-unders. I mean, if you're looking at, a conference where there's a lot of unders in conference plays, and you're getting a lot of points, those are the type of situations you want to look at. Absolutely. Each team's unique, and by no means do you want to just base a bet on what the conference record is.
Nope.
But it certainly is a great way to make your play stronger, or perhaps keep you off a play that you might have thought about using.
Yep, absolutely. And Ralph, the market here so far, one of the big movers and shakers here today on this card, as we look at the SEC going on, ACC, Big 10 here, Big 12 with Oklahoma, Texas Tech. But the big mover of the day was, you and I laughed, it seemed to be a bad number from the beginning, but some places the look-ahead line opened up last night at 138.5. Some opened up this morning at 141, 142. It's already up to 148, and that, of course, is the Auburn versus Arkansas matchup here. So you don't often see that bad a number, Ralph, coming out where we're looking at a 10-point swing at a total, but that's exactly what you had happen here. Anywhere from a 7 to a 10-point move here in just a couple of hours. That's what it is. And we said at number 11, Auburn on the road against Arkansas. It wasn't a good number to begin with, anywhere even remotely close to 140.
Yeah, and, it's a number that, you look at the percentages, only 59% of the tickets, but I think it was a number, Joe, that they just blew it. They just posted a bad number. So, you look at what some of the other places opened it at, and they were closer to the 144 ranges. So,
gotcha.
We're taking it off what one opener was, and they opened it, but that's one casino that opened it, and then the others came in, and the others didn't open it there. They opened it much later. So, to me, it was just a bad line that someone put up, and, perhaps that Super Bowl hangover, or, you're not paying as much attention. Monday was a dead card, and you're getting into this. So there's clearly value to be found. And I will say this, we talk about getting value and getting the best of the line. If I see a 7-point line move and it's only been up for a couple hours, if I still think there's value, I'm not afraid to play the over, even if I'm going into that line move, because to me, it wasn't a legitimate line move. It's not like a college football total was out on Tuesday and it moved 7 points to a Saturday, and now you're betting into a legitimate 7-point line move. By no means is that the case. So, we've seen there's some other big numbers. The Bowling Green Central Michigan game has 89% of the money on the under, yet it only moved a half a point. So that means you have a lot of little tickets. The casinos aren't going to move the number unless they get big respected bets. So you can have a huge percentage and not move the line, or you can have a percentage that's even opposite of where the line goes, because a couple respected people bet big monies on it, and then the public bet the other way. So you have to be able to dissect what the line moves are, and just don't necessarily think, oh, this line moved at sharps, because that's not ever the case.
No, not in most of these conferences and what we're talking about here. But two teams, Ralph, that we have talked about in the past seem to have flipped roles here. Colorado State, Fresno State here tonight at 9 o'clock. Colorado State opened up as a 2.5 point favorite. It has since swapped over to Fresno State, the home team, laying 1.5 points here. Do you agree with the switch here? Do you think Fresno State should be the favorite against Colorado State?
I like this Colorado State team, and boy, Nico Medved has done an incredible job. But I think, I think Fresno State, I have, in my power ratings, I think I have Colorado State 4 points better, but it would still be tough for me to make them a road favorite. You look at their road games, they did beat Air Force, and they did beat San Jose State, and they did beat Tulsa, which was a huge win. But again, that Tulsa was before Christmas, so I'm not counting it. They went to Nevada, they lost. They went to Utah State and lost. Both teams better than this. So, it's right in that mix. If they were playing a team better than them, I'd look to fade them. If they were playing a team to be worse than Fresno State, I'd be looking to play on Colorado State. But, it's right in the sweet point where they have to prove to me that they're good enough to go on the road and beat this type of team, because, they're coming off back-to-back home wins against Nevada and UNLV. And, their last road win was January 18th. So it's been a little bit of a while. And, you have a freshman point guard, and, there's always a concern when you're Colorado State and you have a freshman point guard. Well, Fresno State does as well, but again, being at home is a little different scenario.
A lot different, and a lot of people questioning what's going on here with Texas Tech, Ralph, at home taking on Oklahoma, a Big 12 matchup. Two teams pretty evenly matched, except Texas Tech opened up with a 7.5 number there as a favorite, and they keep getting the money, Ralph. It's up to 9 here in a lot of different places. So Texas Tech at home, kind of a different team at home than we've seen them on the road. But these look like they're both 4-4 in conference. These look like two pretty evenly matched teams. Why such a big number?
Well, I think the number's legit, because you're looking at a Texas Tech team that, lost to TCU on the road, nothing wrong with that. Lost to Kentucky in overtime at home, beat West Virginia at home, and then lost to Kansas. So, you're off TCU, Kentucky, West Virginia, Kansas, and that's what the Big 12 is, though. I mean, it's just a freaking brutal conference. And I look at Oklahoma, and they're an improved team. They're solid on both offense and defense. But Oklahoma, they played a top 20 defense against Baylor. They scored 57 and lost. They played a top 20 defense against Kansas. They scored 52 and lost. They played a top 20 in Wichita State and lost. They played a top 20 defense at Stanford and lost by 19. So, now they're playing another top 10, and guess what? They have a top 1 or 2 defense next game against West Virginia. So, I think Oklahoma is going to come back to earth. I agree with the line move in that game.
There you go. All right, Ralph, a lot of games here on the board here tonight with some interesting dogs. Was there one that stuck out to you more than the other?
Well, I am going to look at Ball State.
Ooh.
They are a team to me that continues to play better. They had a bunch of injuries and suspensions early. They never really got their groove together. They did lose back-to-back games against Central Michigan and Bowling Green, but Central Michigan with a real fast pace, and Bowling Green one of the best teams, and Akron one of the better teams. So now they're facing that next level of team on the road. They did beat Eastern Michigan, but I think they're a very fair dog. And, Kent State is off their Akron rival a win. They played their other 2 games on the road before then. So I'm gonna back Ball State in a MAC game tonight.
Like that. You're gonna go. It's going Ball State. I love that. Ralph, there's a couple of big numbers on the board here tonight that I don't get, and. Do I trust Rutgers to be able to get the job done on the road in Maryland? No, although I'd love them to, but they're not going to do it. I do like, however, and call me crazy, Ralph, but I like Ohio State going into this game against Michigan.
You're crazy.
I knew it. Call me nuts, man, but I like Ohio State in this spot. Going into Michigan, man. And we've talked about it. Sometimes the loss of DJ Carton is big for Ohio State, no doubt about it. But we've also seen sometimes things like this rally the troops, so to speak. I don't think you're going to have to get Ohio State up for a game at Michigan, conference game. They haven't had a lot of road success on the road, but I just do not trust Michigan to get the job done in this spot. So if there was going to be a big upset on the card here tonight, I think you got to look. And I don't know that Livers is back, by the way. He's been out a couple of games for Michigan. I don't think he'll be back tonight. It would help Michigan, but I like Ohio State. If we're going to have an upset tonight, I think that might be the place to look, Ralph.
All right, Joe, I'm going to just break down something that I do, when I'm going through games. As you said, Livers is questionable today with the groin, Joe. But, it's value in the same season. If this game were being played back in the beginning of November, Ohio State would probably be a 6-point favorite.
Right.
And so let's go ahead and look. Both teams played North Carolina about the same time. Right, so Michigan played North Carolina on 11/28, and Michigan was +3.
Okay.
No, Ohio State played Michigan at Michigan. No, sorry. Let me read. Okay.
Right.
Michigan went to North Carolina. They were +3, and they won by 9.
Mm-hmm.
Ohio State was +2.5. So they had them even back in the beginning of December. I was expecting there to be a little bit of difference. And like I said, as you go through games, I learn things too. But I like this. I like going back to see where the line was last year.
Mm-hmm.
I go back to see where I would have had the line with my power ratings at the beginning of the year.
Okay.
And then I look to see how much that line changed. Because often, we have the mentality of what have you done for me lately? But if, in my mind, if these two teams have played just a month ago or 2 months ago, is there really a 10-point difference from has Ohio State dropped 10 points or has Michigan dropped that many? But, I think they both have dropped. Yeah. And that's the reason they're the same now because, Michigan, their wins at home against Purdue in double overtime and Nebraska and Rutgers in the Big Ten. Ohio State's wins are Nebraska, Northwestern, and Indiana. So Michigan clearly has the better win in Purdue. But talent-wise, there's no question this Ohio State team has more talent. And, while Carton is one of their most important players, an important thing to remember is he plays a lot. He's a freshman.
Right.
He only started 3 games for him. He played a lot of minutes, but you still do have your starters in there, which gives you a lot of continuity when you need it at the beginning of the game or at the end of the game. Carton was that great fill-up guy, that next guy to step up when the starters went out. But much different losing a player that's valuable than it is losing a starter that's valuable because you're not having to change all your rotations.
Yep, and the line is moving towards Ohio State, guys. Opened up at 3, a lot of 2.5s out there. So it is pushing towards a possible upset there tonight, according to the market. But there are a couple of marquee matchups there, Ralph. We'll stick in the Big Ten as Penn State is traveling to Michigan State. Now, if this game were in Penn State, we might be having a different conversation about dogs, but this is definitely not in Penn State. This is in Michigan State here, and that number is hovering, Ralph, if I'm not mistaken. It's still hovering around 7.5, 8. Did it move? I don't think it's moved yet, so it's still 8.5. Oh, it is.
8.5, and 144.
Yep. So 8.5.
Came up a half point from the opener, came up 1.5 on the totals. And, we know Penn State hasn't been a tournament team in I don't know how many years, 20, 25 plus. So, they are a tournament team. So this is one, Joe, just as we're talking, I am going to go in and look at what the line was last year when Michigan was at home against Penn State. And I'm going to say, just guessing, it was at least 12 points higher. Now, I might very well be wrong, but let's take a look. And you know what, guys? I'm going to give a shout-out to killersports.com. I get a lot of my trends from there. But their matchups, if you just go to killersports.com and click on college basketball, you see the last 20 matchups between these two teams.
Wow.
You see the over-under, the margins. You see how much rest they had. Last year, Michigan State at home was minus 14.5, and they were minus 7.5 at Penn State. So you're getting this Michigan State team laying only 1 point more at home than they did the last time they played them, which was Sunday, January 13th, 2019, just about exactly a year ago. They were laying 7.5 at State College, and now you're getting them laying 8.5. So that clearly tells you, is Michigan State down that much, or is Penn State up that much? Well, it's clearly Penn State is up that much.
Yep.
I think there's value on Michigan State in this game. You know, yes, you're 16-5, and yes, you're doing well in the Big Ten, and you lost 3 games. But your road wins were at Michigan, which who we know is struggling, and at Nebraska, which, you know, with Northwestern is at the bottom of the Big Ten. So, I think Michigan State has possibility to make my card. I have not finalized my card yet, but, you know, this team's playing back to a top 20 defense, a top 20 offense. You clearly have the best player on the court with Cassius Winston. You have a point guard that take over. You're off a loss against Wisconsin, a 1-point brutal loss.
Yep.
Everything to me points to Michigan State in this game.
Yeah, it's interesting too, Ralph, because you look at Penn State coming in. They won their last 4 games, but Michigan State, they were in Madison, Wisconsin, right? They showed a point short. Penn State, by the way, 4 wins, 4 covers. So they've been pretty profitable, but they're coming home for just what it looks to be the second time, Ralph, in the last 5 games. They're 8-3 against the number in their last 11, but they're 7-0 against the number in their last 7 home games. Yeah, Penn State has lost the last 1, 2, 3 head-to-head meetings against Michigan State. I don't see. I'm with you. I don't. This has got double-digit win at home by Michigan State, I think, written all over it. I might even take a look at the on the under in this particular point too, Ralph. I don't know that Penn State's going to be able to muster up enough offense maybe to hit the over in this one.
Well, you know, again, when you look at Penn State, I'm going to go ahead and look when they have faced a top 20 defense. Well, they faced a top 20 defense against Wisconsin. They scored 49 points and lost by 9.
It looks like in the last.
They faced a top 20 defense in Rutgers. They scored 61 and lost by 11.
Mm-hmm.
They did beat Maryland, who is a top 20 offense. They did lose to Ohio State, scoring 74, losing by 30. And that's it.
Yep.
This is the third best defense they faced this year. They're coming off where, you know, Michigan has the number 46 defense. Indiana has the number 47 defense. Nebraska has the 154 defense. So you're playing 3 teams with weak defenses, and you played the Indiana game at home and Michigan on the road. So, yeah, back-to-back road games. You're playing Saturday and Tuesday. You have a revenge game against Minnesota on deck. You lost to Minnesota by 6 back on January 15th. I may actually get to the window as we're talking this through on Michigan State.
There we go. Love that. All right, we do have one more marquee matchup we'll take a look at. We'll go to the SEC. We mentioned it earlier. The Razorbacks taking on the Auburn Tigers here in Arkansas, and I do think, Ralph, that Auburn opened up a lot of eyes with what they did against Kentucky there and on Saturday. And their defense really kicked it up a notch. And I think maybe that was the most impressive thing about that game was that their defense locked down. They only gave up 66 to Kentucky, and that wasn't more than enough to give their offense an opportunity to win the game. And meanwhile, listen, Arkansas, they got a couple of really nice players, some good scorers, but I don't know if their defense can match, even at home. I don't know if they can match up with Auburn. I don't want to say that it's been do or die kind of. It feels like Auburn with the 3, but that defense really showed me something over the weekend. If they bring that here, I think it's an easy win for them.
Well, you know, I'm going to go the other way. I'm going to back Arkansas. Now,
nice.
The concern is this. you lost at home to South Carolina, a game you should have won 2 games ago.
True.
But then you went to Alabama and you did what you had to be. You know, Arkansas, to me, I like the way they're playing defense down the stretch. Some games are higher scoring, but you got to remember when you look at pace of play, this isn't Big 12 defenses. I mean, Alabama, we know with Nate Oates is one of the quickest teams. Kentucky has tempo. You know, the teams that they have tempo. And to me, it comes down home road dichotomy. Auburn, they beat Mississippi State on the road back on January 4th. But then they lost to Bama, they lost to Florida, and then they beat Mississippi, a game they should have crushed them, and it took 2 overtimes. So I see Auburn coming off a 2 overtime game that they needed to win, and then you're off that home win against Kentucky. Oh, yeah, and by the way, you have a home team against LSU. I think the scheduling spot just clearly calls out for Arkansas. And, Bruce Pearl has his team at 19-2, but 19-2 against the number 73 schedule, and Arkansas 16-5. And let's remember, Arkansas has a first-year head coach in Eric Musselman who came over from the Nevada Wolfpack. So, he's also playing with, 2 sophomores in his starting lineup at shooting guard and Chaney at center. And the question is this: Arkansas is a short team. They're taught most of the time on their court, they're 6'6" or less.
Yep.
Bama has a couple guys over that, but I don't know if they could expose them. They really haven't used their height to their advantage. So we're going to butt heads, Joe, and we're going to bet a beer on the game. Then I'm going to go with Arkansas, and you're going to go with Bama. And if I win, you got to buy me a Miller Lite, and if you win, you probably get one of those weird-ass South Miami beers.
As long as it's got an umbrella in it, Ralph, that's all I care about. I want an umbrella drink. And, by the way, the under 7-2 in the last 9 road games, I believe, for Auburn here. So the under 143.5 in this game. Keep an eye on that because both teams do take pride in defense, Ralph. That's for sure. The question is, offensively, who do you trust a little bit more? And I will say this, the last 8 between these two teams, 6-2 to the favorite. So that would certainly favor you there in this spot, Ralph, and the Arkansas Razorbacks. So,
well, again, when you have a favorite in the series, Joe, and you have new coaching, I don't put that much into it.
Yep, exactly.
If you have the same coaches, but, I do have a situation, Joe, I want to get to before we get to best bets. And again, you guys are going to hear it a lot. I think revenge is one of the most overused terms because if you were a double-digit dog and you lose to a team, there's no way in hell you have revenge. You were expected to lose that game. But, here's one where you were a bad team and you lost. So this is a system. It goes back to 2006. There's not many occurrences, but the record is 22-8, 73% against the spread. And it's if a team is a home dog, that is off a win as a 12-point dog, and they have revenge and they scored 57 or fewer points in that loss. So we have Boston College tonight is a 15-point home dog to Duke. Boston College pulled the outright upset as a 12-point dog against North Carolina. And the last time Boston College played Duke, they lost and they scored under 57 points. I think it was like 88-48.
Wow.
It was a blowout.
Yeah.
So you have a team that is a home dog, so they're not as good.
Right.
They obviously didn't perform well against this foe, but they do have some momentum pulling that upset off their last win. And again, those teams in that role have gone 22-8, 73.3% tonight. And that play is BC plus the points against Duke.
Yeah, exactly. It's another one of those games, Ralph, that just it stuck out. I'm going, that's a lot of points to give a home team who's got some momentum. And it's interesting, the revenge factor that you throw in there as well. Love that. All right, Ralph, let's talk best bets here. Interesting card tonight. I know there is one game. It's kind of a pick'em game that I'm looking at. But where exactly are you looking at here on the card tonight?
Well, let's switch it up, Joe. You go ahead and go first because I don't want to take yours and say, "Oh my God, Rolf, you took my best bet." So fire away.
I know you're going to have a trend for this somewhere, but talk to me about Xavier coming off of one of its best wins of the season, right? That 12-point victory off of Seton Hall. Now they go on the road, taking on a DePaul team. Does this not have letdown written all over it here, Ralph? Because I like the Blue Demons. They have lost their last 9 of 10 games against them, but they have covered the last 2. I like Xavier. I like the direction they're heading. We all thought they were underachieving a little bit here, but this has just got if DePaul can push the tempo here, I do think they'll have an opportunity to push it in the paint. I do think they'll be able to get to the line, and I do think that they can be a much bigger pain in the ass with the defensive liabilities that Xavier brings. It would not surprise me here if DePaul pulls off the upset. It's a pick-em game for the most part. I kind of like the home team here in a situation where maybe Xavier, a little letdown situation, beating Seton Hall last game.
I'm not going to have an opinion on that game, Joe. I look, we talk about conference-only stats, and you look at, Xavier to start the year, I think I had him number 16 or 17 in my power ratings.
Right.
They're probably now down to number 60.
Yeah.
You look at what they've done in the Big East. I mean, they are granted, they played the second toughest Big East schedule, but they're 3-6. When you look at their conference-only efficiency, they're number 8 in offense, number 9 in defense. Hell, DePaul is number 9 and number 7.
Right.
That's the kind of value I look for. So, I don't think you can say the win for Xavier against Seton Hall on the road, which is a great win, is a game changer because they beat TCU on the road earlier, and then they lose 4 of their next 5 games. And they beat Georgetown at home. You think that turns it around? Well, no. Then they lose to Creighton in a double overtime against Marquette. So, you're talking about a Xavier team that's coming off a 2 overtime loss at home to Marquette, then has that huge win against Xavier. They're fighting for their lives. And yeah, they may be the better team, and on paper they're clearly the better team. But when you're 14-8, and you were 11-2, so that means you're 3-6 your last 9 games, and now you're fighting for a big berth when at the beginning of the year you were probably thinking you were a Sweet 16 team. So it's one of those that there's so many moving pieces that I'm going to watch, but I certainly can't argue playing against a team that is in such poor form with Xavier. And it's what we learned from it. Was that Seton Hall win a turning point? We won't know until after this game. And you're going to say it's not. I'm going to wait and see. So, totally understand.
I just don't love Xavier in this spot, and you're going to have a desperate DePaul team for sure. Where are you looking at here, Ralph? What do you think you got going on here tonight? Best bets.
I am going to go with Georgia Tech.
Ooh.
And, they're minus a point and a half to VT. It's a team I followed closely. I was on them a couple times, split couple games early. A team that comes in at 10-12. But they're also a team that, Jose Alvarado missed the first 7 or 8, 9 games, their best player. And when I look at their losses, Florida State, Duke, Virginia, Louisville. None are bad losses.
That's correct.
They split against Notre Dame. Now, would I have liked them to win at home against Notre Dame? Yeah, I would have liked them to win at home. But, that was a couple games ago, and that was coming off their Boston College wins. So, Virginia Tech has lost 3 in a row. You got to remember this is a team that, is in the first year of Mike Young's system. There are some tweaks in style of play. He came over from Wofford. He's in his first year. But I look at on the road, their road wins are Syracuse and Wake Forest. That's it. The Syracuse game was tight. The Wake Forest game, you should have beaten. And those are their only couple road games besides Clemson early in the year. So I like the form of Georgia Tech. I'm going to back the Yellow Jackets tonight.
Going Yellow Jackets here tonight. Georgia Tech guys in college hoops. Good card, fun card here tonight. Some very interesting matchups. Again, just 40 days away from tournament time here, guys. So a lot of teams that are on the bubble in that mix, desperation mode over the next 30 days for sure. And you should not be desperate by heading over to WagerTalk.com, though, or SportsMemo.com, either or. Make sure you guys head over there. Ralph's plays always up and available each and every day. WagerTalk.com. Look at the Cal Sports page. Also at Cal Sports LV. Make sure you're tailing him on Twitter. You can always catch me at sportsgrid.com. And Ralph, it's going to be a 22-game slate. Going to be fun tonight to see how this goes, but we get to come back and break them out again tomorrow and have some fun and count our money together. And well, except I'll be counting the amount of Mai Tais you'll be owing me here once Auburn wins tonight. But that's all right. Well, that's another thing. We'll worry about it tomorrow, Ralph. So good luck with the plays, brother, man.
Joe, we'll talk to you in 23, and always a blast.
Always it, man. Get to WagerTalk.com today, guys. Good luck with the plays.